Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. On 11th of August at 9:36 p.m. Eastern Time, Sun in Leo will oppose Moon in Aquarius, forming the final supermoon of this year at 19°21' of Aquarius, which will influence us all over the course of next 2 weeks. A supermoon, due to the closest approach to Earth, influences the collective more emotionally, and we are not to see another one till August of 2023. This one particularly packs a punch because it has a grand cross embedded in it, with Saturn, Uranus, North Node, South Node, along with this full moon and Sun, all in conflict with each other, with we seemingly being stretched in different direction, pulled in different direction, and there is immense amount of tension embedded in this full moon. While there are external conflicts or obstructing factors, a grand cross screams internal tension and a need to balance very different, opposing and conflicting parts of ourselves. There is need to overcome those elements within versus giving into the victim mentality that this can breed, as we can seemingly feel stuck in the face of fixity, of opposition and obstruction, or the inertia of our own will. Yet the concentration, although it comes through restriction and frustration, yet the concentration that this full moon and this difficult aspect offers, it will focus the otherwise wild energy lacking direction, energy which must be and needs to be used to create the basic building blocks of our life: security, resources, worth and legacy. They are the focus of the stretch and the pull and the push and the pull of this full moon. We will talk about those very building blocks today. This full moon falls on the moon of Ukraine, and it is a lunar eclipse for Putin, so we would see the impossible choice of Russia and Ukraine conflict come to focus, come to forth. It will come to a head. We had a new moon, a new start at this very degree of Aquarius in February of 2016, which you can look back to. But like all new starts, they were seeds with little or no tangible outcome in that moment, though the closure of that new start could have come around August to November 2017, which in my view is a more pertinent moment to look back to. August to November 2017, if you had to let go something or release something which felt like a vision or a goal or your destination at that time, or you had to give in selflessly to something, something about that will come to focus. A closure, a reality, an outcome of that moment could come to forth in bright light of this full moon for us to objectively dissect, see and move on from. We can't pretend that the last 5 years did not happen since that happened, since that moment of August to November of 2017, because those last 5 years, they have changed what we want and how we wanted. 2021 was a big factor in that shift. I may call it even breakthrough, to change our vision, to change our destination. Duplicity is not a trait of Aquarius initiation, but more than one vision, more than one brilliant ideas might be what you would have thought is your legacy. But now, in this moment, with this full moon, we need to pare those choices down. This full moon is conjunct Saturn, and with the initiation of the Saturn cycle, the 9-month gestation period of Saturn transiting back and forth on a specific degree, which started from March of 2022 and it will end in November of 2022, you would be pushed in the current moment to pursue one legacy, one idea, one vision, and get serious about that, leaving any frivolous ventures behind. Saturn does that to us. It's doing it again over these 2 weeks as we try to refine the structure of our legacy, one in hindsight that we could have ideally pursued right after November of 2017, but then we weren't the person we are now. who's about to live that legacy. My name is Charu. I'm your host on this journey. Let's dig in. Every full moon, it brings out the polarities within us. With the full moon in Aquarius, the polarity is between the sun in Leo opposing the moon in Aquarius. We are dealing with the balancing act between the air and the fire elements within us. Our freedom-loving, intellectual, objective, friendly to all, attached to none self, it needs to be balanced with the romantic, heart, warm, generous, fun, life-giving and faithful part of us. Leo part of us is our individuality, our ego, our perfect alignment with our personal desires, our unique I, which in Leo season we are very deeply involved and engaged in. And that part of us needs to be balanced with the social, group-oriented, legacy-creating, equality and cooperation-seeking we part of us, which Aquarius full moon highlights. The rebellious and the non-conformist part of us needs to be balanced with our need for individual material gains. Neither is less than the other. One is a social goal and the other is individual goal. If Leo fire did not really fuel our self-confidence during the season, we would not be able to bring our intellectual goals to a large set of people or cope with the complexity that social goals inevitably bring. If Leo did not open our heart, the Aquarius full moon, which makes us meet other people or it encourages us to go for new social connections, friendships, it would be totally dry and our vision would be uninspiring to others. Leo brings the abstract to life. It brings the heart to the idea. Its season which we are in right now since 22nd of July, it helps remind us who we are. Our individuality and our faith in it is refueled. Aquarius part of us is what makes our individuality and unique skills available and accessible to others, to everyone, versus a small set of people. And now the focus over the course of next 2 weeks is to do exactly that, to make our individuality and unique skills available to others. It helps us release our need for applause to perform. It gives us the altruistic purpose in life that goes beyond material fulfillment. Aquarius is the social channel to our individual self-expression that we were each uniquely imprinted with. It directs our energies towards a legacy, a meaningful purpose in life, and that's exactly what we dedicate ourselves to over the course of next 2 weeks. Aquarius is also very much about a collective human revolution and evolution that we are about to collectively embark upon. That's the focus of the next 2 weeks, and let's see how we individually are part of this collective evolution moving forward, what kind of vision, goal we could be working on over the course of next 2 weeks that will make us that contributing human being that we all want to become. Aquarius themes that we all might experience over the course of next 2 weeks, which will give a preview to what kind of legacy we might be working on, creating, could be in the field of scientific discovery, could be in the field of electronic devices, space discovery, humanitarian movements, group goals, some sort of diversity or women rights or welfare, education, liberation, equality, morality kind of goals, which involve a group movement. Inspirational leaders are born with this. Works of mind and great ideas are born with it, which are creative genius or ahead of time. Rally of the underdogs is born under Aquarius full moon. Collective voices of common people are heard and emboldened under this full moon. Social media and platforms come to focus during this full moon. Stock market, astrology, astronomy, decentralized financial systems, evolution of human mind, our nervous system individually, and nerves or network that connect our society, those connections are brought to focus with a Aquarius full moon. Expect your imagination and your mind to be stimulated, maybe a bit too much, because Uranus is making a hard aspect of this full moon, making us all feel emotionally a bit restless. Yet what seems like a distraction in our journey to material gains or material changes that North Node in Taurus is guiding all of us to do, this full moon is an essential step. It's an essential step of recognizing what is the long-term vision, what is the long-term destination you're heading towards, so we don't get lost in the pursuit of material stability, which is required, which is important, considering we are in North Node in Taurus transit, which does require us to solidify our material wealth, our material abundance, our own self-worth, individual self-worth and net worth. But if a life does not have a purpose, if there is no life purpose fulfilled, it would not let us perform fully in the material plane as well. So what is that life purpose, the social goal that you and I were born to pursue? That comes for refinement during this full moon over the course of next 2 weeks. And it's not just a matter of those 2 weeks, because Saturn has been in Aquarius since 2020, and I'll talk a bit more about that after we go through the theme of this full moon, which has been in some ways creating the discipline to pursue that vision, that goal, that legacy that we are meant to leave behind. As I said, as stressful as it might feel, you being pulled in many different directions, which is going to happen in the moment, it's the very stress that's keeping you and me, and more importantly, our brains, buffed and taut, utilizing everything we hold within us. While the opposition is complementary, Sun in Leo is going to add the heart, the generosity, the uniqueness, the confidence, the flair, the beautiful self-expression, a touch of drama and fun to whatever Aquarius contribution you're refining the structure of to be socially viable human being who's contributing to the social network or the group or the platform that you're part of, or whatever legacy you're trying to create. This push and pull can very much feel like a person, an actual physical impediment opposing your goals, your will or ego, or a person essentially seeming coming in the way of your personal goal. We are meant to understand how the presence of that opposing factor actually complements what we are creating, because each of these oppositions is an ingredient that we are meant to add in to avoid making a bland Aquarian concoction of we are the world or worse universal income. The lack of so-called corporate greed or high finance or entertainment industry, it makes one stand in line to get smuggled Coca-Cola or iPhone, or wait for a couple of years to get a washing machine. No one wants to walk these extremities. The extremities of Leo or the extremities of Aquarius, extremities of individual goals and the extremity of these we are the world or worse universal income goals. No one wants to walk those extremes. So usually this opposition brings out the need to balance these two parts of the society, balance these two parts of ourselves, and through another person who could be a Leo representative in our life, that person or an impediment, it comes in to recognize, to realize, to make us understand that we are not to lose ourselves to a social goal, that we are not to lose our self-interest, our individual shine to a universal or social goal. If your ego is being provoked, remember someone is reminding you to take care of your self-interest. The heart square of Taurus, which we are also feeling, it is a tough inner inhibition. This is an external inhibition between Leo and Aquarius, which we are feeling, where we have to balance our individuality versus the social contribution. But there is a heart square being made with Uranus in Taurus and North Node in Taurus, and that is a tough inner inhibition of worth and security. You're fighting with yourself over here. Does the money grow on the tree part, the am I worth of this goal part, more constructively? Do I need to work on progressing my skills to go forward with this goal part? So you have to figure out your inner inhibition, which could be money linked. Usually with Uranus and Taurus, there is a volatility of financial nature, which inhibits us from contributing socially or to create what we thought is our legacy. Or there's a question of worthiness. We don't feel worthy enough to create or to participate in a larger social expression. Or is it your skill set that you feel you need to create more in line with the future, that you invariably would need to do to be part of what you're walking into? And with Mars and Taurus making a positive aspect with Pluto in Capricorn around 14th of August, we have the energy and the positive aspects available to us to create what is needed to create to overcome this financial or self-worth or skill set linked impediment, which might be blocking you from moving forward on your goals, to move forward on your vision, to move forward on your social goals. There is also a hard square of South Node in Scorpio, which is, in my view, purely psychological. And it usually fights our own inner complexes, because without draining those inner demons, we cannot really socially contribute, mingle, interact, or give ourselves fully to a brighter, more optimistic vision of future if we are stuck in past losses or stuck in past complexes, or worse, stuck in addictive, self-defeating kind of patterns, which you and I both will see and realize over the course of next 2 weeks as we try to overcome them to move forward. And that is very much the theme of South Node in Scorpio that you and I are living right now. It can also be the inner inhibition of everything we feel we owe to everyone else. That is what normally South Node in Scorpio inhibition is about. It's about what we think we owe to everybody else. The invisible debts that we owe to our partners, to our parents, to our spouse, and sometimes very rarely real debt that inhibits us to think bigger or beyond the current moment. So these are the stretch and the pulls and the pushes, in my view, that you would be fighting against to deliver your legacy, your vision, your goal, your social goals especially, that you might be working on over the course of next 2 weeks. Stresses of financial or worth nature, they crumble or provide the right level of stress to push forward. And it would depend very much on our individual construct, historical discipline, situation and tenacity on how we individually do with those stresses. Saturn moons, which this one is, because Saturn is conjunct this full moon, not very strongly, but very close. It invariably comes with something that we need to give up, pare out or moderate for the sake of future abundance, for the sake of future progress. It's not emotionally comfortable, but with Saturn and Aquarius, the payoffs are real, they are tangible, they're long-term, and they're satisfying. Because Saturn in Aquarius is dignified, so it gives us a legacy which is not just a theoretical legacy, it is lucrative and structurally viable. And that's what we would be doing over the course of next 2 weeks. We will be trying to figure out the viability, structural viability of what we are creating. We are now going to look at the timeline and the long-term why and the short-term why of what we are about to work on over the course of next 2 weeks. With Saturn entering Aquarius in March of 2020 for the first time since 1991, the pressure on all of us to create something meaningful that outlasts us and we can dare call our legacy, it has increased. We are each in one or other way being pushed or prodded and disciplined and streamlined and reshaped in unknown ways to develop a purpose that permits us to participate in a larger expression. It in short term has become our source of sanity in uncertain times, and in long run it will become the source of our material growth of next decade, because in December 2020 we initiated the Saturn Jupiter synod in Aquarius. So the part of your life, the part of your legacy, the part of your vision that you're working over the course of next 2 weeks, that comes to focus over the next 2 weeks through push and pull, that is the once in 20 years conjunctions output. You are redefining the structure or source of your material growth for the next 20 years. And we started this new chapter in December of 2020 with a new synod between Saturn and Jupiter initiating in Aquarius at 0 degree of Aquarius. That was a chapter of our new material growth that we discussed in detail by sign for each one of you, and that is very much the theme of this full moon and the next 2 weeks. I'm going to link that by sign videos for you to look at in the comments and description, so you can go over it to review the source of your next 20 years of growth and the theme of this full moon for your sign. This Saturn Jupiter conjunction at 0 degree 29 minutes of Aquarius of 21st of December 2020, it fell on moon and ascendant of China. It kickstarted the so-called tech clamp down in China, which started with the censure of Alibaba, but we all know this is about Saturn. It's about authorities taking over the innovation and the structure of growth. Rules, responsibility, formal structure, authority over the source of growth are key themes that Saturn in Aquarius will continue to define and refine till March of 2023. You might in your individual capacity also might have felt since the start in 2020 to now that we are under the thumb of something, or we're trying to redefine the structure of it, or it's not growing at the speed we like, or the formal structure is not yet set in stone. And that is just the part of the process that Saturn in Aquarius shows us, and it will continue till March of 2023 with this full moon being an imperative accelerator in that process. When Pluto will come over this very degree, because Pluto will enter Aquarius in March of 2023 and Saturn will exit Aquarius in March of 2023 with the difference of maybe 10 or 12 days, we would see how strategically the assets, the structures that are being created, which are the source of abundance, which are the source of power, which are the source of structural growth, whether for China or for us individually or for any other country, it would be leveraged for power, control, and abundance, because Pluto signifies wealth, power, control. As Pluto is already with an approach to initial degree of Aquarius, we can see the preview, and also Pluto on the moon of China will reflect people which will essentially rebel some of that control. We are also already observing that, and we will observe that further when Pluto enters Aquarius, and it's going to hit the moon of China after March of 2023. I'll talk briefly about that in this video later. This or any of my readings, they are not political, economical, social, medical, or any other kind of advice. I'm purely basing this on astrological aspects. And astrological aspects show that Saturn tries to pare down and create the structure of what we thought was immediately available to us, but we have work to do. It might have been a brilliant idea, it might have been a source of growth, but there was a lot of refinement that is required in it, and we are very much in the middle of that process. So let's talk about the process. Let's talk about the short-term timeline instead of this long-term timeline. Saturn in Aquarius is giving us the discipline and the pressure required to lay down the foundation. And right now we are in the retrograde period of Saturn in Aquarius. We are refining the inner structure before the external changes can be seen. We are redefining our own boundaries with others, our rule of engagement, and creating a form of a vision in hiding, devoid of any external influences, so we can make up our mind on what we want our legacy to be, how we want the structure of our vision to be, what kind of output we want to personally create, and what is the rule book around it, what is the structure around it. And that is the key job of this retrograde journey from 4th of June till October of 2022, possibly for a seed or initiation that you and I planted of this new structure during the first transit in March of 2022 to this degree of Aquarius, which is 19th degree of Aquarius. Opposition of Sun and Saturn, which is an annual affair, which we are about to experience on 14th of August, and it is an integral part of this full moon. That's the last Sun-Saturn opposition in Aquarius for next 29 years. It's normally the time when something comes to light. What needs to be structurally changed for a vision to be viable, for a goal to be lucrative, in my view, it comes to light with Sun-Saturn opposition, which we are about to experience as a part of this full moon, to be exact around 14th of August. It's the midway. It's the midway of the 9-month of gestation period of Saturn. For this specific degree, that 9-month gestation period of something that was seeded and which is about to be born in November, it began around 6th of March 2022. So that is a short-term timeline. Look towards around 6th March 2022, when something that requires a lot of time, effort and dedication, it began. Especially if you have any planets or points around 19 degree of fixed signs. That is 19 degree of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, which is around 9th of May born, 11th of August born, 10th of November born, or 8th of February born. But all of us could, in my view, relate to this timeline of period of gestation, the 9-month period of a structure being born, which started in March. It's being refined now in August, and the final birth of that structure, in my view, will happen only in November of 2022. The period since June, which was the period when Saturn went retrograde, it becomes the time of reviewing our boundaries with authorities, our boundaries with parents or people who seemingly have power or authority over our outcome. They seem to have a participation, a role to play in the outcome of the seed, like how the structure is supposed to be. We are required to deal with those people. So we have been dealing with, how do I deal with that person? How do I deal with authority? How do I deal with that rule, that even sometimes a legal aspect? How do I deal with that? That period since June 2022 is the time when we have been reviewing behind the scene our boundaries, our rule book with those people. It's also the period when reconsideration of structure of whatever you're building, it comes into review, possibly due to a roadblock that's hit in June of 2022. So reassessment of power, rule book, authority, boundaries, it is a key factor during the retrograde period, which will last from June to October. That is the period where we sort of kind of question ourselves. Where did I say yes? Where did I say where I should have said no? Those boundaries are in some ways put up again, because without those boundaries, you cannot succeed socially. We reassess, we reconnect with ourselves deeper before we can connect with others. We internally evaluate our limits before we can communicate them to others. It's triggered this journey of rule book, putting the walls up, or finding our own limits, or how do I need to connect with others. That trigger normally is a social dissatisfaction. A social dissatisfaction with a goal, with a vision not being accepted as much, not getting as much popularity, not being lucrative enough, or a dissatisfaction with a friend, a network, a platform, a wider vision, where we might have hit a wall in June of 2022. This midpoint, which we are in right now, when Saturn again visits this point on 14th of August, it is a key turning point to know how to remove that roadblock. The last cycle of refinement of a vision in Aquarius. Temptation would be to abandon it all and run, because we would recognize that what needs to be done is tough, or it seems tough at this moment. Sun, our light, our ego, our joyful self would feel attacked by something or someone on the 14th of August, and it would feel like a criticism. But it's actually information which is gold and important to follow through on. It's possible that we might try to run away from it. And to some extent, it's possible that you might have already heard this information because Mercury already opposed Saturn around 31st of July to 1st of August. So there is already some discussion which has happened. We have already registered this push and pull of our ego's will versus what needs to be done to make it happen. We would recall China's warning to Nancy Pelosi around that time, 31st of July, 1st of August. As I mentioned in Leo new moon, our will usually wins in Leo season, especially with Mars, Uranus, North Node conjunction in fixed sign, but it's at a cost. It's possible that that cost is conveyed around 31st of July or 1st of August to her. What's outdated? This is in our individual capacity, this is a turning point. This is a point of recognition of what needs to be done to get where we want to get. What's outdated, what needs to be released, what needs to be pared down, what does not support who you are becoming, whether it's weak boundaries or weak inner emotional discipline, it's brought to light. And what structurally needs to change for you to manifest the source of next 20 years of growth, it is brought to light, although through an intense encounter with another. So that's the midpoint that we are at. The final outcome of this 9-month gestation would be with birth in November 2022, specifically around 22nd of November 2022, when the cycle of seeding, gestation and birth, it will get completed. For Ukraine, I'm taking an example, because Saturn in Aquarius is going back and forth on its moon of the country. Moon of a country represents its people, a period of distress initiated with the first transit of Saturn to its moon in February or March of 2022, when that distress actually was seeded. Now, over the course of next 2 weeks, with this midpoint coming in, we could see some information coming to light on this conflict, on what needs to be done to get out of it or move to the other side of it. The last transit, the birthing for Saturn on moon of Ukraine, is in December of 2022. So I'm hoping and praying for birth of a structural solution by December 2022 or January 2023 of the conflict, with a key stress point being highlighted over the course of next 2 weeks, which would indicate a way out. This full moon is a lunar eclipse for Putin, with North Node and his Jupiter in Taurus conjunct North Node and Uranus. So if a resolution is achieved or an agreement is achieved, it's possible that it's in his favor, or he somehow personally, in my view, could stand to gain from it. United States is another country which has moon in Aquarius, but the moon of United States is a few degrees later as compared to Ukraine. And also, as I said in the previous reading, that you need to look at the aspects to the moon as well. So every country is not created the same. Every construct of moon represents the people. The construct of people is not the same. United States also has moon in Aquarius, though it's around 27 degree of Aquarius in the 3rd house of the country. So Saturn will also come on moon of United States. It would only become exact on that degree in February 2023, though there are certain months when it is very close to the moon of United States as well. It can influence or dampen the commerce, the business sentiment and the freedom of speech or communication or travel freedom of people when it will become exact to the degree in February 2023, and we can see a preview or some sort of opposition towards that, or some sort of hint or information coming to light in my view right now. You can look back to 1993 for the history of any key events that happened in United States for the parallel. This full moon also falls on the sun of Japan in Aquarius. It represents the head of the country. Sun represents the head of the country. When Saturn comes on the sun of a country, we see distress to the head of the country. We have already seen, because Saturn has been going back and forth on it, we unfortunately observed the assassination of former Prime Minister of the country, and this indicates continued stress on the current Prime Minister, 𝗙𝗂𝗹𝗹, who has a stellium in Leo. I have spoken about the activation in Leo if you have planets in Leo, and we see him in the middle of something that, in my view, he didn't want to be in the middle of, but the activation puts you right where you need to be at a specific time in your destiny. So we could see stress on the head of the country, and overall we see that structural growth of the country in some ways has some amount of stress indicated when Saturn is visiting the sun of the country. So we could see Japan as the other country that I can think of where some amount of stress to the Prime Minister can come to focus. Personally, you could follow the cycle of gestation that I mentioned to you. See in March of 2022 what you thought you want to seriously work on, you want to focus on, you want to deliver, you want to create, and then now is the period when you finally find some answers, in my view, of why it was not growing in the way you wanted it to grow. And the final birth of the new structure, in my view, will happen around November or December of 2022. That's the 9-month gestation period of Saturn visiting a degree that we are following. Personally, also look back to February 2016. February of 2016, we had a new moon at this exact degree. But new moons at that time, in 2016, you were a completely different person. We did not have nodes transiting Aquarius and Leos. So things changed in 2017. What you thought is your vision, what you thought is your goal, what you thought is your legacy, in my view, changed with certain events in 2017, specifically August to November 2017. Those themes, in my view, will come up again for you. Those are, in my view, trigger dates, trigger times, especially the eclipse of August 2017 to November 2017. Look at what you possibly concluded, released, or lost, what you thought you lost or ended, or something you had to selflessly give into during the eclipse of August or November 2017. Now you might see an additional information on what needs to be structurally changed to not have the same outcome now, in my view. I wanted to also talk to you about the last Saturn-Uranus square that is happening in October of 2022. Remember, we are yet to have that one and final Saturn-Uranus square, which will happen on 4th of October 2022. Now, this is not exact, it's near, but it is going to be felt. This was the theme of 2021. Saturn-Uranus square, that aspect, it was a key theme of 2021. And it is an aspect which is well embedded in this full moon. That's why we are talking about it right now. I spoke about it by sign in 2021. So I'm going to leave it in the comments for you to access, so you can look at how Saturn Square Uranus influences your sign. Finding this balance between structure and our inner madness or genius, it was the key outcome of that aspect, especially individually. How do I create something structurally viable, something which can be, in traditional sense, be a success, or can be presented or is tangible, of a genius idea, or just the anarchy within that I feel, or the dissonance within me that I feel, or a brilliant genius idea that I have, or ahead of time idea that I have. How do I create a tangible outcome of that? That was the key theme of 2021 and this aspect for us individually. But for the collective, this was very much a fight between freedom, innovation, and rules or restriction. For example, decentralized finance and authorities or old players. All major strides in progression of mankind, they have come from the synod of Saturn-Uranus, and we experience it through a stark conflict between the old and the new, the sane and the seemingly insane, of this world versus out of this world, dogmatic and progressive, structural progression, and fiercely independent, skipping many steps, detached, accelerated progression. That is Saturn in Aquarius conflicting with Uranus and Taurus, and it somehow would become about collective responsibility or welfare versus individual interest and progress or wealth, in my view, at this time. Many of you associate this aspect with lockdowns and protests against them, and I don't blame you. We experienced that. We experienced a lot of anarchy, protests on causes and for freedom. They were the hallmark of this aspect in 2021, as were bitcoins, altcoins, space explorations, division in society on key structural points of coexistence, whether it's about masks or other topics. They did come into focus over the course of those 3 squares which happened in 2021. And I do fully expect those conflicts to come back again when the square becomes near exact on 4th of October. This full moon, in my view, would start showing the reasons for those conflicts. It will start seeing these 2 planets approach this conflict. The road to that would be marked with conflict, in my view, between the old and the new, the structures, the rules, the restrictions versus the progressive, the individual freedom, the interest, the innovation. Both, we'll feel that both within and outside in collective, we'll feel that these 2 parts of the society, these 2 parts of administration, they're fighting with each other. But this is the last square. Usually, and we saw this in December of 2021 as well, we have to find a way to merge these 2. Whether it is mainstream finance finding a way to work together with new finance, or whether it is the anarchy within us finding a new structure. This full moon over next 2 weeks, it just doesn't offer the opportunity to pare down, streamline, work hard, create rules of engagement of our goals and vision. It also offers an opportunity to see how to merge our vision, our goals, especially social or humanitarian goals, how to merge that with our need for freedom, our rebellious spirit, the writing on the wall of future financial volatility or change, new ways of making or dealing with assets and money. How do I incorporate my social goal with the innovation? The Saturn and the Uranus part of Aquarius, it needs to be merged. The structure and the anarchy needs to be merged. The emotional reactiveness will be high, especially when we feel entrapped by somebody. It could help us, in my view, though, find a liberating way to do what we love with all the discipline, but not the unconscious blockage of free exchange of ideas and thoughts. So we'll have to find a way to merge these 2. And in my view, that was the purpose of Saturn Square Uranus in 2021 that we experienced. And now we're going to see another small sliver of it, an outcome of that, with October 2022, and this full moon plays a key participation. It has a key ingredient to add to that. I will link both the Saturn Square Uranus for your sign as well as for the collective, so you can look at that to review what was supposed to be the outcome of 2021, which we will revisit with this full moon. So that's what I have for you. I'll see you in the next reading now. Thank you.